So hello from Davao, where I am for work, and hello from yet another hotel room, and hello from my blonde hair. I'm blonde now, but I'll let you know if we do have more fun. But yeah, so here's me bringing you guys another video book review. If you watched my last one, which was of Descendant of the Crane, I guess I discovered that I really like making review videos, I guess. But I am nowhere near making a booktube. Like, for one thing, I still don't have the proper equipment, and I have no idea how video editing works. So again, like the Descendant of the Crane video, this is just gonna be one continuous video that I splice a little bit at the end and at the beginning, just so that it's not super long. So yeah, so here's another book review. So I'm bringing to you today my opinion of one of my favorite and most anticipated releases of the year, which is none other than The Shadowglass by my queen, Rin Chupeco. So if you've been following my blog since early 2018, then you should know by now that the Bone Witch trilogy is one of my favorite books ever, and that I think Rin Chupeco is an extremely talented writer, and certainly one of the best YA writers that the recent years have produced. My reviews of The Bone Witch and its sequel, The Heart Forger, are both up on my blog, and they're both very glowing reviews, easily 5 stars out of 5 stars. Shadowglass is the closing of that trilogy, and I am happy to report that it meets the same standards that its older sisters, The Bone Witch and The Heart Forger, did. It is truly excellent, a masterpiece. I got an arc, how long ago was that? Yeah, I'm trash. I got an arc of The Shadowglass some time ago and still didn't find the time to read it. Yes, I know. In Tagalog, as we say, wala akong kwenta. Anyway, I got that arc a few months ago, November of 2018, and I never found the time to read it. But then over the Holy Week break, a couple weeks ago here in the Philippines, I finally found the time, and holy, little pun there, Holy Week, holy Jesus. Sorry. Okay, anyway, and oh my god, it was amazing. It was, I don't know how to put this. It was like the perfect way to end a trilogy, like a bookish trilogy. It was so satisfying. Like, it still had twists and turns that you don't see coming, but then in hindsight you do. Like, when the twist happens, you're all, oh my god, I never saw this coming. But then after a few minutes you think it through, or not even a few minutes, maybe in a couple hours, you think it through, and then you realize, wait, I did see this coming. I did kind of get a feel for this in the second book, in the first book, which is a sign, by the way, that the author did their job, because she left like little clues throughout the story for you to follow and for you to subconsciously latch onto, so that when the final reveal of the big bad comes, you're all like, whoa. So there's shock, but there's also like a little bit of, ooh, I knew it, which is enjoyable for a reader. So there was that factor. So yeah, I'm going to structure this review in a more logical way, or at least try to, because going back and watching my review of Descendant of the Crane, it's, I don't want to say cringy, but it kind of is, because I just really rattle on for like 20 minutes about how much I love Descendant of the Crane. But yeah, pre-order this, sorry, not pre-order anymore because it's come out already. Order Descendant of the Crane. Filipino readers, you know what to do. Tweet Fully Booked, tweet Power Books, tweet National Bookstore. International readers, sorry, not international readers, we're the international readers. American readers, you guys have got all the resources available to you. Request it from your libraries if you can't afford to buy it. If you can't afford to buy it from indie bookstores, from Amazon, from Barnes and Noble. You know what to do. Okay, this turned into a little bit of a Descendant of the Crane promo, but Joan deserves it. Anyway, back to Shadowglass. I'm sorry. Okay, back to Shadowglass. So I'm gonna structure this review a little bit more than I did my last video review. I'm gonna follow the format that I use in my blog, the way that I review books on my blog. So I'll start by talking about the plot, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about the characters, and then the writing, and then finally how I felt about it overall. So, plot. This is basically the culmination of things that Rin has laid out for us since, wow, when was The Bone Witch published? 2016? 2015? Anyway, this is a plot that Rin has laid out since 2016, and this is the conclusion that if you've been a fan of this book series for a while, it's the conclusion that you're waiting for so badly. And oh my god, it works. I have lost count of how many bookish trilogies I have encountered where it gives you like literary blue balls. Yeah, I can't believe I just said balls. Ugh. Anyway, it gives you literary blue balls. I hate the term, but it's the best way to describe what I can think of, what the thing that I'm thinking of. Because like, the setup is so good, and you're waiting for like a punchy end, a nice way to wrap everything up in a pretty little bow that still leaves you going, oh my god. But some trilogies lack that. And it's so frustrating because like the setup is really good and you're expecting like a 1-2 wham bam thank you ma'am kind of ending that makes you feel all painful and emotional and curling up on the floor crying kind of thing. But some trilogies don't have that. The Bone Witch trilogy fortunately does. The Shadowglass is a perfect way to end this series. So you have all the characters and events have been set up for you in the Bone Witch and the Heart Forger. Whereas the Bone Witch was very Asian type storytelling with lots of background, lots of introspection, lots of world building. And then the Heart Forger was a little more Western in that there was a progression and there were actions that the characters underwent. The Shadowglass was a good mix of the two, where it talked about it was like a little, there was more world building in the sense that it talked about like the myths and legends of that universe, the legend of little tears and all that, but it also had action in that this is the culmination of everything that the characters have undergone since the first book, since the second book, and it's leading up to war, which you know if you've read the books that there's currently an ongoing war spurred on by the Faceless. So it's a good mix of the two. It's action-packed, which I love in a book. I have a little bit of an action fan in me. It explains why I can watch dick flicks with my boyfriend, because he is so into dick flicks. Anyway, I just realized I sounded like I was talking about porn. No, I'm talking about like, you know, Fast and Furious and The Expendables and all that. My boyfriend doesn't watch. No, he, you know what, I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna stop talking about that and go back to the review. Anyway, so, it was a good mix of action, things moving forward, battles beginning, fighting happening, and cute love scenes between T and Kaylin, which I so loved. It's adorable. It really is. And then of course you have introspective scenes with Lick and Khalad and T herself, with regard to her relationship with Fox, where they realize certain things that they feel and how they should act on those feelings. And all of that was nicely mixed up with the background that you get from the research that T does and all the information that she looks up on the legends and myths of how magic and Asha and the Death Seekers came to be. So it felt epic, in a word. You got to see the characters move forward and do things and be physical about it, but you also got to see them learn and acquire knowledge. And honestly, in a movie, the part where the characters acquire knowledge about the situation that they're in is actually one of my favorite parts of a movie. Like, you know, in a horror movie where the white girl goes to the library and looks at a microfiche and then finds out, like, her house was built on top of an Indian burial ground. That researchy kind of shit. I love that shit in a movie. And I love it even more in a book because you can expound on it more. And The Shadowglass was a great mix of that plus the action. So it was just overall a really epic plot, an epic book. And Rin tied up everything really nicely. You got answers to almost all the questions that the Bone Witch and the Heart Forger pitched are answered in The Shadowglass. And even if they are not, or at least not to your satisfaction, it feels done deliberately. Like if a question or an issue was left unanswered, it felt like Rin did that on purpose to make you think about what were the repercussions of what happened. Basically, it just felt like a really well thought out, well planned book. And if all authors could end their trilogies as well as Rin did, we wouldn't have any of those trilogies that I mentioned earlier that leave you with literary blue balls. So props to Rin for that. It was amazing. I can't really talk much about like the plot without revealing spoilers, so I won't do that. All I'm gonna say is that it was a great ending to a great beginning. That is really punchy and quotable. I'm gonna use that for like the one-liner that I describe my posts with. Okay. Anyway, so that's the plot. So let's move on a little bit to the writing. If there's one thing that I love about the Bone Witch trilogy, it's that it is a gorgeous metaphor for feminine anger and how women can struggle against the place that they're put in society and how they're demonized for struggling against that place, for wanting agency and power. Oh my god, the theme of female power is handled magnificently. If there's something that you can observe in traditional Asian societies, or not even Asian societies, but not even just Asian societies, but basic ethnic societies in general, it's that women in places of power are viewed with suspicion. And I don't want to argue about whether or not that's because of a colonial thing, if being colonized by Europeans and Americans instilled that suspicion in us. I know, at least in the Philippines, that suspicion of feminine power arose because of the prevalence of because of when we were colonized by Spain. Sorry, I thought I heard something. When we were colonized by Spain, and the Catholic Church came to the Philippines, it brought along that idea that feminine power is unnatural, it's evil, it must be punished, it's not in accordance with God's will and all that. So I cannot speak for other ethnicities because I have not done that research, but all I can say is the Bone Witch trilogy expands on that theme really well. You have the Asha, who basically pull the strings, diplomatically and politically speaking, in the kingdoms. But they are held tightly in control by the Asha elders. And when an Asha breaks away from that tightly held, tightly controlled tradition, it is treated as something that should be feared, something that should be punished, which they do to T. So I always felt that T was an allegory for women who want to own and come into their power and are punished by society for doing so, even if their motives are good. Because we can all agree that T's motives were good. She wanted to save the kingdoms. She wanted to defeat the faceless. She wanted to make things equal again between magic users and non-magic users. So when she took that power in her, and by the way, it's very telling that the power that T is ostracized for is also a power that the kingdoms cannot do without. Because if the Bone Witches didn't have that power, then nobody would be around to slay the deva, to if ever there was a need for raising someone from the dead. So it's a power that is both feared and needed. And you can't, in a society like that, you can't tell if the fear and the hatred is coming from because they don't know about that power, like they're ignorant about that power, or because they hate the fact that they need it. So it's so much of a commentary on how society views powerful women in this day and age. And it's also an allegory, I feel. The tea situation, for me, is also representative of how society is not equipped or doesn't deal appropriately or quite well with female anger. Ow, I hit my hand on the table. Yeah, but I still don't have the proper equipment for this, so I'm not cutting it. That stays in. Yeah. I'm just filming this on my phone, and it's just balanced like on top of my suitcase. So yeah, a booktuber I am not. Anyway, so where was I? Yeah, there. So women in power, feminine power, and feminine anger. So those themes are woven throughout the entire trilogy, and it comes to a head in the last book, and it's just done so beautifully. You really feel T's desperation to help her brother, help her friends, help her kingdom, and at every turn she's being met by people who are thinking the worst of her just because she wields this dark power, and she's not sure, or it feels like she's not sure of her ability to do it. It's amazing. It really is. I know, I think I've said the word amazing like 10 times in this video, but Rin deserves it. Alright, so writing. I've actually already said quite a lot about the world building of this series in my review of The Bone Witch, so I'm not gonna take up too much time, but again, very well done, very well built, very well described. Everything was very, it really put the image in my head of where they were. And one of the highest, for me at least, one of the highest praises I can give to a book is that it made me feel like I was watching a movie in my head. Some books can't do that. Some books, I'm very acutely aware of the fact that I'm reading a book. But when I read a book and then I can vividly see the images playing out in my head, that tells me that the writer used a good mix of dialogue and description and action phrases to really create that scene in my head. And the Shadowglass was one of those books for me. Characters. So one of my favorite moments of character development, by the way, in this book was that of Lick. So a little bit of a spoiler alert, but not one that affects the plot. In the Shadowglass, it is finally confirmed that Lick is transgender. She is a trans woman. And the fact of being trans is very well handled in this. I don't know how much the fact that Heart's Glass is a thing contributed to the ease with which Rin handled talking about a trans character, but it was done very well. Honestly, if you want to write a trans character but you yourself are not trans, this is a good example. Lick is transgender. She is a trans woman. Her journey to realizing that she is trans is laid out there, but it is not made a pillar or a supporting facet to T's story. In fact, I would go on as much to say that I would love to read a book about, spoiler alert again, I would love to read a book later on about Lick and Kalad's adventures or their love life, or anything about them, really. I need more of Lick and Kalad. I'm sorry, but I love them. So Rin, if you're watching this, you know what to do. Well, no, I'm kidding. I know you're busy. I know we've got tons of projects and tons of cats now, apparently, on your hands. So yeah, congrats on the Never Tilting World, by the way. Anyway, so yeah, this is a good example of how to handle having characters that are trans while not making your book specifically about them being trans. which, as we've all seen from that trash fire of a book that was released last week, I think, which, as we all know, is a big no-no. You can write about trans characters. There's nothing stopping. In fact, yes, please, write more trans characters, even if you yourself are not trans. But you cannot write about them being trans, because that is an avenue, that is an experience that we as cis people, as cisgender people, will never know about as much as they do. So yeah, this was a good example, I believe. So we have that representation that Lick is a trans woman, and there are important conversations that are had between Lick and T, with T standing as Lick's friend. But the book is not entirely and wholly about Lick being a trans woman, which Rin, as a cisgender woman, would be unqualified to write about. So it was a good way to handle it. Disclaimer on that: I do acknowledge that I am a cisgender woman, so I cannot specifically say that all across the board the portrayal of Lick as a transgender woman was accurate and respectful. Only trans people can say for sure that it was. I feel that it was, but my opinion is not as valid as that of a trans person regarding this issue. So there's that. So take what I say regarding Lick being trans with a grain of salt. The other characters, you really get to see T coming into her own as not just a bone witch, but as a woman owning her power, owning her anger, using it, both her power and her anger, to achieve what she desires, what she wants. It was very Captain Marvel, to be honest. Like, you know how in the movie, Captain Marvel realizes that her emotions, her anger, are actually the key to controlling her power. This book is like that for T. It's the moment where she finally comes into her own as a bone witch, and harnesses everything that she has in her, emotionally and intellectually, to become the Dark Asha, that the most powerful and most significant Dark Asha in history. And it's great to see. It feels so satisfying, especially when you've read it from the very beginning, from the Bone Witch, and you remember her humble origins, and now she's this great and powerful historical figure. So yeah, that was this book was a nice way to tie up all loose ends, and it was basically just the perfect way to end her character arc. The other characters, Kalen, his development was great too. His relationship with T was so amazing and cute and fun to read. There are a little bit of cute moments there sprinkled throughout the book to kind of offset the darkness a little bit, which I did appreciate and which was very lovely. You're going to, if you ever read the book, you're going to like squeal a little bit, and as we say in Tagalog, nakakakilig. What is the translation of nakakakilig? Like that cute fuzzy feeling you get inside when something cute between your favorite pairing is happening on a TV show or in a book. That's what nakakakilig means. Yeah. Overall, I have nothing else to say. It was a great book. It was a wonderful book. It was the perfect way to end the Bone Witch trilogy, and I have so many feelings about it because I have been with T since the very beginning of her journey. I read The Bone Witch even before I became a book blogger, actually. And yeah, I am so happy that it ended this way. It was the perfect way to end an already good, great trilogy. What did I say earlier? A great beginning, a great ending to a great beginning. So yeah, 5 stars out of 5, definitely. You can get the Shadowglass on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, indie bookstores. You can get on Book Depository too. I do not know when hard copies of Shadowglass are coming to the Philippines, which is really fucked up considering Rin's from here. But yeah, I haven't seen any yet in bookstores. But if you do, leave a comment. Let me know. Let me know where you got your copy. Yeah, I need. I have an ARC, but I'd love like an actual finished copy to add to my collection of books written by Filipino authors. So yeah. Go now! What are you waiting for? Go now and order the Shadowglass and complete that trilogy. Do yourself a favor, read it, really. Alright, that's all that I have for you guys today. If I do have fun making these videos, so I will be giving a little bit more thought about maybe adding booktube to my repertoire as a book blogger. But for now, all I can say is light and love from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!